Oh, it did fix it. Ooh, ooh. Exciting. Okay. Getting my notes. Not those notes. Don't need those notes. Mm-mm-mm. 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 Ah, welcome! Welcome to another episode of Metaphysicalish. I am Momboy. It's wonderful that you're here. I hope you love this beautiful collection of videos that I have assembled that I believe, don't come after me, I believe that they're all fair use. I did my due diligence, I promise. Got receipts. You need receipts? We good? I hope you love it. The theme is spring and just the awakening that I can feel. So, I live in the southeastern United States, and typically this time of year is very exciting for me. So, it's the end of March, reminds me of when I was 9 going on 10 months pregnant with my child, and they were born before April started. So it does take me back to that time almost 7 years ago, which is what we're at right now. So that's happening. But more in general, I I just start to notice beautiful things happening. Some kind of obvious ones, like my azaleas are bright red and bright pink and beautiful. And having days where it's sunny and there's a nice breeze and blah, blah, blah. But more than anything, it's just like this desire to get out there and be outside to enjoy. Cinder has returned to be part of today's episode. Hi, kitty cat. But yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time outside, and my kiddo has been excited to go outside, which makes me very happy because when it's hot, there is much more resistance to the idea. It's a harder sell. This weekend and most weekends, we're sort of falling into a really beautiful rhythm where we go to the library at least, probably 2 weekends a month. And it being in the neighborhood is just incredible. And that kind of connects thematically to a lot of things that I've been observing in the last little while. So, in the late winter, early spring, before you see any sprouts, and if you go playing in the dirt, you'll find these kinds of things. You'll see sprouts, seeds that have been laying dormant for since last year, last season, whatever their last season was, or even further back than that, right? And just it lined up so that time to sprout. It's time to do it. So you can feel that happening, and then we've got our some of our bulb flowers, like the lilies, the tiger lilies. They're gearing up. There are some bulbs coming up in the front yard, which are probably tulips. We'll see. We planted a lot of bulbs out there, and it's always interesting to see what pops up. And this year we have a deterrent. Hopefully, it's a cute little rabbit statue, but hopefully it will deter some of the critters that ate all of the tulips. And most of them last year. And reading, falling back in love with reading has been a wonderful gift to me, and a gift that allows me to be a better me so I can show up for the people around me. Um, Reading has been a safe spot for me for as long as I can remember. And my love of reading starts with my mom, who recognized that as an I was approaching 3 years old as my younger sibling was about to be born, and then they were born. Yeah, they were born 3 years and 1 month after me. So in that final ramp up, kind of like this season that I'm nostalgic about right now, my mom knew that by really focusing with me on learning how to read, that I would never be alone, that you have anxieties as you are becoming a parent. I imagine no matter how many times you do it, there are anxieties that crop up. And one of those can easily be like, do I have enough love to give another person? Do I have enough room in my heart? And the answer is yes, but you love the first time that you opened your heart so fully. You love that child, those previous children so much. You don't want them to lack or want. And it's a balancing act, like most things, right? So my mom recognized that and set me up for this entire lifetime, essentially, because I learned how to be alone from a very young age. And given the choice of an activity, I would be reading outside, wandering, not doing anything unsafe, but exploring the immediate forest and lake that was nearby. Those sort of activities, usually more so like in the yard playing with cats, petting dogs, finding bugs, and those sorts of, treasure hunty type activities, trying to make things, occasional nincompoopery, as we are very good at, right? Not this little precious angel, not her. And so, yes, my mom taught me to read. Thank you, Mom. It's been wonderful. But somewhere in the hustle, struggle, bus, whatever of life and providing a life and being responsible and an adult that takes care of a family, I lost my love of reading. I felt it start to shatter when I was finishing up at Clemson, because of how deeply I loved the opportunity to spend my whole week reading, writing, reflecting, connecting, researching, digging deeper, pursuing the edge of what was known, and wanting to be a seer, a pursuer of truth and what it's all about, what are our purposes, and how do we make the most of it while we are here this time. And I felt a lot of, I think pain might be the best word, around not being able to focus on that, to not also have a full-time job, bills that were very, very difficult to satisfy, coming from a place where not nest eggs were rare and welcome when they popped up, but very rare, having a safety net of any sort. And I think I got stuck a little bit in the resentment of people who are more fortunate and are able to really laser focus in on whatever they want to learn. And I've just been very tired. It is, I know that sounds ridiculous, but the thing is like, you have a child, if you are extremely lucky, you get maybe, like 4 to 6 months off in the United States. Like, that's extremely lucky. It's possible that you get like no time at all, or 6 weeks, or you know what I mean, anywhere in there. It's not, if there is a federal minimum that is mandated, it is nowhere near what is practical, which is like, I don't know, it's so hard to let your babies go be anywhere else when they're very young and can't talk and tell you what they need, or if something went wrong that they need help navigating if they don't have those tools. So that took a really long time. Feel like as a family we are finally somewhat settling into a rhythm, and I can tell in part that it has been a huge period of growth, I think, for all of us in our own ways. But what's happening, this wonderful thing is happening where we can now sit at a table and play cards, and we can play card games and board games. We're working on the attention span, and losing, that's a rough one when you are the oldest and the baby at the same time. So it's really wonderful in those regards. So just have had that on the mind, thinking about my mom and how her gift of teaching me to read and to be exploratory and encouraging of my imagination. However, it would come through. A lot of times it would come through in play, like coloring and drawing, and more so playing with the color and the mixing of color than illustrative drawing. I think that was another kind of fork in my path where I thought that it wasn't good enough to be inspired in that direction, which is really silly. And now I primarily paint in the digital realm because it is so accessible. And by that I mean I may wish that I had a shale pencil, a set of watercolors, a charcoal, perfectly gridded off paper, like a blank canvas, not just the material access, but also in the spoons and forks that your soul is bringing to the table. So you have a creative effort that you would like to pursue. You understand intellectually what the materials are to achieve the desired state of having your area organized so you can dive into letting the creativity flow forth, or creating something that you kind of pointedly have decided that you want to. There's all of that, and then there are those voices that convince you that it's not worth it, or the setup will be too hard, the cleanup will be too hard, on and on and on. And by virtue of being able to pick up my tablet, draw in really it feels like it's tactile. That's the part that's important for me. The tactile feeling that the well-designed brushes have in Procreate, for example, and being able to go in and sketch with a pencil, outline it with a kind of like, feels like an acrylic paint brush kind of deal, or move in a sort of more abstract and blended direction, controlling the opacity. It's really I've fully come around from this experience where I went into learning how to create art digitally thinking this will never be as good, right? Like, this will just, it's a thing to do while you're doing something else. What's the big deal? And also, it'll never be as legitimate as the tangible, physical, classical understanding of what that means. And that's all baloney, because you find your joy where you find your joy. And I feel so much joy when when I'm able to paint and not have to be very careful of a area where I'm dispensing paint, I'm mixing paint, there's all these materials, there's cleanup, there's maintenance, blah, 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 cost, time, energy, all of that. It's simplified. And anything that can help me go from, oh my gosh, I really want to do this, to doing the thing before I can overthink it, before I can decide that it won't be worth it, or whatever reason comes up in my brain where I'm just like, no, I could, but, got a bin full of acrylic paints, but, and I recognize that malaise is connected to depression, or call it what you will. So I get a lot of positive reinforcement when I'm able to quickly jump in. It's like wanting to swim and walking outside and jumping into a pool, whether it's yours or not, but just, it's like the access, the time to entry. There's no waiting. There's no work that you are dependent on. So that's been on the mind a lot, and I have been having this feeling, let me know if you have felt this way too, where there are times where I feel like I have located the knob for my creative outlet, my creative output, and I've turned the hose on, and now I've got a whacking, waving, flailing, inflatable arm, paling water hose. And it's wonderful. I'm like, yeah, see, look, I went from not believing that it was there to now knowing that there is a deep well of it, seemingly, self-refreshing. There it is. There's the knob, right? But what do I do with all this water? And sometimes it does feel like a 24-hour day is spent doing all the things I need to do, and then also turning on the hose, figuring out what to do with it to some degree, starting, stop, and then being essentially sort of having progress slowed down because of the reset. Every time I go to sleep, it is such a big reset. Every time I go to sleep, the next day, it's a matter of reconnecting and activating my mind towards my objectives, when it can feel like my core state is lounging comfortably with pets, with cats, with books, with tea. And those are wonderful things. But if I spend most of my days doing that, then no, the magic slips away. So searching out, putting this out there in the universe, a balance. I'm seeing now that you can feel, as I have felt, compelled to start creating videos and organizing the things that you think, and hopefully starting discussions in the out there, and also perpetuating a push in the direction of, you have got this, you can do it, you are doing it. And in fact, when you are less preoccupied with if you can and how you will and the fine details, zoom out. If you can zoom out a little bit, if you can control the panning in and the panning out, many things become much easier. I think, for example, I am the kind of neurodivergent that when I get ready to clean something, it's a deep clean. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. It is either going in with the plan being probably overly ambitious, and the plan being to maybe like take a whole room and I want to deep clean this room, this area, versus getting up and being like, I should vacuum the parts that are right here that have carpet, and there's the vacuum. Why don't I just plug it in, put on some music, and wander around? You do it regularly, it takes no time at all. My brain doesn't usually work. My shoulds are broken. And I'm not really wanting to buy into a system of shoulds, but I would like to have a consistent sense of motivation and habits that help me create and maintain an environment that is organized and enjoyable, and the energy, the vibes are such that you feel safe to be who you are, expressive, creative, all of those things. That there's, a level of freedom. Those are the things that I wish. And then, see, this is why I have to vacuum. Because I have kittens. Kittens! Fluffy kittens! Like Cinder, who has left her adorable fur and now departed me. I also wanted to take a moment in this video to remember my uncle, who I found out passed away this weekend. And I think that something about having, very few close blood family members, in a way, brings into focus the grief. The grief is very sharp when it is. And this was a sudden loss. I have less personal experience with sudden loss. Not no experience with sudden loss. And I think ultimately what's important to remember about my uncle who passed away is that in a community, in a time frame where he could have been so many things. He could have been cruel if he wanted to be. He could have been unkind. He could have made all of these choices. And he didn't. He chose to work hard, love his child, love his grandchildren, have a home that was very welcoming, that you could come in at any time and it would be clean and it would be welcoming, and you could sit down and there would be like some kind of delicious snack. Yeah, he was a wonderful person, and I'm sad that he's gone, obviously, and I'm sad I feel a familiar sort of grief. I feel the grief of my cousin's children having no more experiences with this wonderful person. That's where it gets me the most. And I know that is also a reflection of my grief and my feelings towards losing my mom in 2019. And they were brother and sister. My mom was the baby of the family, and it's all sort of connected in a very sweet way. I know that when my uncle was in high school, I believe my dad knew him. Like they all went, I think, to the same high school in Anderson, South Carolina. McDuffie, no longer that high school. It's still a campus. But anyway, growing up, my Uncle Dinky, love you, buddy. He was one of my only family members that lived in a house, and that was impressive. I do recall at one point, I kept doing this as a kid. I'd love to play in cars that were parked, and then you accidentally released the parking brake. I didn't cause any damage, but I do remember being in like a Ford Taurus wagon or something and almost running into his house. But what he did is he stood up in a time period where no one did. In fact, many family members pushed off from the shore that was my mom's kidneys failing and were scared and shut down. And while I don't understand why that situation would cause that entirely. I do understand that I have had situations that you might not understand that cause me to go into hide, shut down, retreat mode. So there's that level of understanding. But in that time period, it's very scary. It started when I was in 5th grade and going into 6th grade, the start of middle school. That, like, the spring from 5th grade through 8th grade, I guess, were some of the most depressed feeling years that I've had. And that's an origination moment for me in many ways, due to my mom needing a kidney transplant, being on dialysis, and watching that experience unfold, and her constantly feel like she didn't have the energy to do what she wanted to do, to sort of like, she had a very high bar. And I love that about my mom, because I think she grew up in a situation where maybe she felt like it wasn't as clean as she wanted it to be at times. And so she really like put herself in that position of being the type of person who can clean up a mess. She was a badass in that respect, and kept a great house. We might have had a small trailer, but it was nice. It was kept clean. It was pristine. And the illness, her organs not, cooperating the way they needed to, she was deteriorating. And that is when my Uncle Dinky was in my memory, there were some moments of like, oh, maybe I could help. And then people being like, oh, I'm not getting my blood drawn. Whoa. It's like, all right, if you can't handle getting your blood drawn, I don't see you having a surgery to, give this woman time and quality of life. And those were the gifts that Dinky gave to my mom, and that Dinky gave to me. In many ways, I credit him with my mom being able to even meet my child. Like, those timelines overlapped because Dinky stepped up. And I know that is, maybe like a big example of how he stood up and helped. But I can't think of a time where he didn't stand up, right? Like, in all of my observations as a kid and growing up, and then just observing him become a grandpa and being really good at that, and loving on dogs. There's always I'm laughing because it's reminding me a little bit of both my husband and my brother, but like of being like, oh, I don't know what happened, but this dog showed up, and I don't know. But then falling in love, like being very soft-hearted when it comes, and compassionate towards animals and people. And just what a badass. He came from a situation that, he did that himself. And I think that's why people are like, some people, they're like, hey, I've seen people start from little and really climb up. And yeah, it's possible. It's difficult. And you don't want to undermine or undervalue the efforts that it took. So I love you, Uncle Dinky. I'm so sorry that, I don't know, the words are never right in these moments. They're never right. But I feel deeply, I feel like a mirror wave of grief. And I know that for my cousin and his immediate family, I'm just really, really thinking of them. And I'm so grateful that they had the time that they did together, and that his legacy is giving a fuck and deeds following what you say you will do. And that's a really beautiful, beautiful legacy. And that you don't have to compromise when it comes to matters of the heart and matters of authentically loving. Yeah. I think also thinking about grief, this time of year is very much about planting the seeds and then getting ready to plant the seeds. And if you are going to plant seeds on a timeline, then you also have a frame where you really want to have them plants ready to go. So then you're, like sprouting plants indoors, like just to extend a frame of reference that I understand, which is sort of like the gardener's calendar of the year. That is happening. But I think also a lesson that's sort of unfolding for me is that you can grieve the plan. You can make a plan and then grieve it when it doesn't work out the way you thought it would. Or, you try to turn hypervigilance into calm observation. Then you make the best guesses and choices that you can. And then you let it flow. Because you can spend every % of your human battery making plans, anticipating plans, resisting change, grieving the plan that changed, grieving what wasn't, grieving the path that you didn't take. There is an abundance of suffering, grief, all of those things. There's also an abundance of joy, of connection, kindness, compassion. So, I don't know exactly how to write down the process or the recipe, but I do know that our hearts recognize joy, and I will let you know if it ever, if the consequences are not of the high caliber, high vibration, and sort of recommended if that ever does occur. But using your heart and using joy as a navigational tool, I think it is a way to expedite the ramp up towards finding what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to be. And so that you don't have to be consumed by creating a plan or consumed by grieving the plan. Last thing I wanted to talk about is okay, human beings, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we afraid of one another? Why are we preparing for danger and pain all the time? I guess what I mean to say is when you are observing, let's say, acts of war, acts of this land belongs to me, this land belongs to me. Okay, flip back 1,000 years, 50 years, 20 years, whatever. Then it belonged to me, my dad, and my dad's dad, and all of that, right? Okay. Where is the attachment, right? Is the attachment to a physical location or experience? What is the true goal? And I try to keep it contained, sort of my exposure to news, national, broader news. Once you get into these macro levels of things, I wonder. I wonder why we are so. It, it's boiling down to complacency. I think that, and previously in my life, I would have called it apathy. I I almost think that maybe both of those are wrong. That it's sort of like maybe you reach this state of sensory overwhelm leading to sensory like numbness, to a sense of no, there's always something like that happening. So, oh, there's, benefits that eventually reach me because of this terrible thing that's happening in a place far away. And I don't think that it's apathy. I think in many occasions it's from caring that you become so numb. And sometimes when you start to peel back layers, zoom in further, truly examine who you are, what you're doing, what you contribute to, what are complacent in. It's sort of like removing a callus. Like you've earned that callus. That callus is from practicing playing the guitar. You've practiced playing the guitar, and now that you have this callus, it makes it easier to play the guitar, even though practicing the guitar gives you a callus. It's it builds. So when you become a good troublemaker in all aspects of your life, when you're asking questions, when life is the Sunday school class and it doesn't make sense and you ask a question and you get in trouble. That's what I mean by good trouble. When you're doing that and the aspects of your life where you have any modicum of control, you start to notice that fellow good troublemakers sort of find one another, because what you go on about to someone who is not in a similar place with similar perspective, I guess you could say, you are very confusing to them. Like, why are you questioning? Why are you making things take so long? Why are you asking questions about something that we have all agreed is the way things are? Except that you kind of you retract your consent, right? I'm trying to understand exactly how we as individuals who care can make the most tangible difference in the world. And I truly think the number one thing that we can all do is to feed one another, to share food, water, access to food, water, clean drinking water, so that, let's say maybe your life is particularly difficult and you wake up early and you go and you work construction to make money, to pay the bills, to put food on the table, and on and on and on. Say that's your life. If you have food and water, you're going to have a better time. You're going to do a better job. Whatever you build is going to be safer. And you are more likely to have a little bit of yourself left at the end of the day for the people you love, for you to recharge, right? When you're not in an urgency, when there isn't just an absolute urgency about when will the next $20 comes so I can get dinner, or maybe you don't have, maybe you don't even have a home, right? And you're just like, your timeline is way different, right? Like someone gives you $1 and you're like, yes, I get like $2 more, and then I can, like, you start your plan can be from here to your next snack or meal, or it could be from here to the paycheck you get next month, right? Like it can vary. That anxiety is overwhelming if you don't have, it's there were things that Maslow in the hierarchy of needs that ring true when you've experienced it. You're like, yeah, I had a really hard time caring about, what Sartre was talking about in No Exit, because I was about to get evicted and I had pasta but no red sauce, Like, you just, you don't have the leisure of being a human being when you are stuck, so stuck that 100% of your human battery is going towards finding your necessities, right? To survive. You're in straight survival mode. And I don't know what the answer is, but I've been doing reading about how different cultures approach ensuring that people in their vicinity, near them, right, have what they need. And I'm being pulled towards reading more about I think it's pronounced Langar, Langar. The idea that it's from Sikhism, I believe. I read a book with Kiddo this weekend about it, and I was like, oh wow, this is a reoccurrence of a thing that I had read about, and was like, interesting. Let's put a flag there. And so with Langar, I believe, I know I'm saying that wrong. I will look it up. I will fix it. I want to learn that at some temples, like the Golden Temple in northern India, you 24/7, there's a meal for you, and everybody eats the same food. They have some really interesting, giant, beautiful kitchens because they're making like, like a curry or a stew or something to go with bread or rice. And so, what are we doing and why aren't we doing that? I see blessing boxes and I will put stuff in there. But the truth of the matter is that we don't have the infrastructure right now so that it's easy to not just give someone like packaged food, right? That's easy, right? But to actually, the part of Langar that's really interesting, excuse me, the focus is on food that's really nourishing. Food that is going to help you on your way. It's a win-win when you help people on their way. And I'm interested in what it feels like when it's more common for that to be the mental model that people are operating with, that every human being is worth to have, deserves not to be hungry or thirsty. And let's excise any talk of prisoners and whatever. Let's just like park that for now. But everybody, I think, including those people, deserve to have a warm, nutritious, delicious meal that recharges their body provides them with relief, right? Like the deep exhale that a good meal is. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, what are we doing? And why aren't we doing that? And how do we do that? What is the... I know we have soup kitchens. It's like, what's the American equivalent of that? And how do we make it a mainstream kind of corner of culture that we have places where people who are compelled to give through service or materials, that comes together, and then from there, maybe it's not 24/7 because we're not the Golden Temple, but at least one meal a day for a community? Are we not pursuing it because we know we'll run out? And then what do we do then, right? Like, how do we fix that? So I'm curious, what do you think? How can we... What are the most strategic ways that we could make sure that less food goes to waste, more people have warm, nutritious meals, especially children, people who are learning, people who have hard manual labor, delivery drivers, people who are in the hot heat and sweating and their bodies are taking a hit, and then they're eating gas station food? No offense, I had a really good sandwich from a gas station recently. But how would it have felt if, that wasn't my only kind of like choice in that moment, or if there were other choices? How do we feed more people? How do we keep it so that it's not... like in the lines of Food Not Bombs, Soup No Sermon, and Food Not Bombs does a wonderful job. Every time that I've volunteered or I've spoken with people who are in an organizing position with Food Not Bombs, it is scrappy. Why is it so scrappy? Why is it so difficult, being told by a restaurant that's about to throw away perfectly wonderful food that they would rather... Not even that they would rather, it's the policy. It's the policy. I have to throw this food away. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? Why are we doing that? Let's not do that. Why aren't we using our superstar planning abilities in that regard? Like always, I don't have the answers, but I do have questions on questions on questions. I hope that this has been interesting and that this chat has kept you company, given you something to think about as you go into this next week of your life, and you are showing up for yourself and for the people that you love, and that you're calibrating with what brings you joy. And if you have a sort of bristle feeling towards that, think about if you have a delineation between joy and pleasure. If you understand the difference. For me, a telltale sign is joy. Joy is like infinity when you're working in math, right? Joy is this asymptote. You can approach it. You can gather more and more and more and more and more of it. And it's given freely. There's no exchange. It doesn't feel like... goes back to William Blake, right? Nothing lasts, but nothing is lost. Nothing lasts, but nothing is lost. So, this is all temporary, and you are not. Maybe this body and manifestation and whatever, is temporary, time-bound. You are experiencing the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself. Nothing lasts. Nothing lasts. But nothing is lost. There's not a true dumpster anywhere. We're just moving the balls around like the little dung beetles. We just move it over here, transmute it over here. Lather, rinse, repeat. Find your joy. If you have an opportunity to feed someone, if you just feel compelled, like, don't even get all into it, like, oh man, like maybe they, blah, 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 blah. No, offer it. What do you have? Offer it. Share. See what that feels like. And as always, if you are hungry, you better not go without, because then my mom will haunt me. We had an agreement that she will haunt me if I allow people to, I can feel her like laughing at that. She's like, Jessie, what the fuck is wrong? Oh, I love my mom so much. I feel moments like that more frequently now, and I think that that is a really difficult thing to explain in the, car crash that is grief, that eventually you will find them in everything. You will find them in yourself. You will order a tea and remember when you were 13 and you begged to go get a tea, and your parents were like, what is going on? Like, what's happening? You drink tea now and it's not sweet tea, and you want to go to a place and spend $5 on one? Like, that's a scam. Pretty sure that's a scam. But you are an insistent child, so go get your green tea latte and go play chess with your friends and read books of old dead white guys with beards, you little weirdo. Like, just thanks, Mom, and thank you, Uncle Dinky. And if you're hungry, you let me know. You don't go without. You come over, you get the big black trash bag, the big one, like you do like yard work with. You go in the pantry, you take whatever you want. Do it. Thanks for listening. I love you all so very much. I love you. I love you. I love you. Please, wherever you are, feel the seasons changing. Feel it. You might feel it and you're like, I feel it. I'm sneezing and I don't like feeling it. Fair. That's valid. That is valid. But you're a part of this natural system as much as we sit inside with our robots and our inventions and our lights. That's your true nature. Your true nature is probably digging in the dirt and eating bugs sometimes. That's probably more in your arena of things that you're good at than whatever your job is. I say with love. So let me know, how is spring showing up for you? How are you showing up for yourself? How are you showing up for other people? And if you're hypervigilant, how do you take the vibration from down to I observe these consecutive facts, and now I make my choice. And now I go through my life. And it's gonna be okay. In fact, it is okay. And even more okayness is on the way. You are setting the table for a beautiful party. And that party is your own abundance, your own happiness, your own joy. Joy that just bursts forth from you and that you share with the people around you. A life that revolves around joy. You are welcoming it in. And it's a vampire, so you gotta You gotta set some intentions and be like, yes, yes, please come in. Come hither. All right, guys, enough for this week. I will see you later. We will do a book, random book page passage finding. We'll do that later this week. And also, I have several videos that are on the editing table that I will try my best to make time for as soon as I possibly can. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I love you. Take care of you. Be well. Bye.